That breaking news at 11 o'clock, a heartbreaking scene near Woodlawn tonight as Baltimore County Police confirm two children, just 9 and 15 years old, shot and killed inside their own home. Apparently a brother and a sister. Welcome into the news at 11, everyone. I'm Rick Ritter. That horrible scene unfolded right off of Tallis Road tonight, with police say they arriving to that scene to find both children dead inside. Drew Unk's on your corner at that scene live at 11 o'clock tonight. And Drew, you had a chance to hear from police who say they are looking for a suspect tonight.
Yeah, police wouldn't go into detail on who that suspect is, but they said they are actively looking for a person that they believe shot and killed two young children inside this home behind me. The scene's still active tonight in the darkness. Crime scene tape surrounds the yard. Police continuing to work and investigate into the night. Baltimore County Police told us the children are believed to be siblings, a boy and a girl, one just 9 years old, the other 15. Now, police say both the parents were on scene and they were the ones who called police. Investigators are calling this a homicide. We saw family members outside of the home holding on to each other and crying after hearing what had happened to these two young children. Baltimore County Police Chief Robert McCullough said this was one of the most horrific things that he has seen in his very long career.
On July 7th, 2026, a mother came home from work to her house on Tallis Road in Gwyn Oak, Maryland, and found both of her children shot inside. Her 15-year-old daughter and her 9-year-old son could not be saved. Whoever had killed them was already gone, leaving behind a devastated family, and one question that would guide the entire investigation: who had come to see her daughter that afternoon? Before we get into what happened inside that house, if you're new here, subscribe so we can uncover the details of this deeply disturbing case together. At first, police had no clear motive and no footage from inside the home. But the final hours of her daughter and son's lives had left a trail beyond Tallis Road. A conversation with a friend, a FaceTime call, bus footage, and cameras that appeared to follow someone toward the house. None of it was visible on the first night. Police vehicles surrounded the property while officers moved between the home and the surrounding streets. Residents stepped outside, trying to understand why such a large response had arrived on a road they'd always considered quiet. One woman had been preparing dinner when she heard screaming from the direction of the house and looked outside to see a woman emerge in distress. She'd seen the children around the property before. Now both were dead. Robert McCullough, the police chief on ground, said he has seen a lot of things in his career, but this is tragic and something that doesn't happen in that neighborhood.
I've seen a lot of things in my career, but this is something that's horrific, it's tragic, it's something that doesn't happen in this community here. I've worked here for a long time, and the worst things we get here are speeding complaints, noise complaints, neighbor complaints. My heart goes out to this family. My heart goes out to this neighborhood. My heart goes out to the other children that may have gone to school or played with these two youths.
Police described the attack as isolated. They didn't believe a gunman was moving randomly through the neighborhood, but they hadn't identified a suspect, announced a motive, or explained how someone had entered the house and left without immediately being noticed. Detectives started with the area around the home, speaking with neighbors and searching for cameras that might have caught movement along Tallis Road. Residents checked doorbell systems and home surveillance recordings, but no single image showed what had happened inside. So investigators widened the search. They began reconstructing the afternoon one fragment at a time. Anyone walking through the neighborhood, waiting near a bus stop, appearing on one camera before turning up on another. At that stage, they weren't following a confirmed suspect. They were trying to find a route. Before that route could mean anything, detectives needed to understand the two children at the center of the case.
That Baltimore County Police press conference is set to get underway. We are expected to hear from Chief Robert McCullough starting right now regarding the Gwyn Oak homicide investigation. Let's take a listen in.
This evening, we'd like to announce that we've made an arrest in the July 7th homicide involving Giovanna, Myrie, and her brother Steve Allen. If you remember back on that date, the homicide occurred in the 6100 block of Tallis Road, in which the brother and sister were murdered. We have arrested a Keith Maurice James Jr., who's 16 years of age, who has an address in West Baltimore, in Baltimore City. He was taken into custody early this morning by Baltimore County detectives when they served a search warrant and an arrest warrant for him. He's charged with the homicide of both victims. Right now, what we can tell you is that this individual was known to our 15-year-old victim and also to her 9-year-old brother. He's right now being held at Baltimore County Detention Center with bail denied. With that, I'll next have County Executive Captain Klossmeyer speak, and then Councilman Jones, and then I'll step back up and answer any questions that you may have.
Giovanna Jennifer Myrie was 15 and known to her family and friends as Gigi. She attended Western High School in Baltimore. Steve Fitzgerald Allen was 9, and his 10th birthday was only 12 days away. They were at different stages of childhood, but they shared the same home, and they were found there together.
Thank you, Chief. I just would like to say how sad a day like today is, and please keep the families in your prayers. And I am so happy with not with the results, but I am so pleased that the police department did such a great, quick job to this part of the whole situation. So thank you, police officers, if you're in here, and thank you, Chief, very, very much. So thank you.
Again, I'm Councilman Julian Jones. I am just taken back by the fact that young people at the age of 16 years old will not only have access to a gun, but have the propensity to actually murder someone and murder two people. So this is an absolute sad day for all of us here in our community, in our country, that this type of violence takes place and is being perpetrated by young people. But at the same time, I want to thank our police department, who work extremely hard each and every day to have a very, very high clearance rate in Baltimore County. I've said it before, I said it again. We can't stop random acts of violence, but just trust and believe that when these violence is perpetrated here in Baltimore County, we will not leave any stones unturned before we make an arrest and take that person to justice. So thank you so much.
As police looked into Gigi's recent communications, one question began to follow the case. Had Steve been part of whatever brought the shooter to the house, or had he simply been inside when an attack meant for someone else unfolded? One of Gigi's closest friends gave investigators their first real lead. She hadn't witnessed the murders, but she knew something no camera had caught. She told detectives Gigi had been talking to a boy named Keith for several weeks. Police later identify him as 16-year-old Keith Maurice James Jr. 3 days before the killings, on July 4th, James had visited Gigi at the Tallis Road home. That mattered immediately, because he wasn't a stranger who'd never been inside the property. Police said he knew both siblings and had already been welcomed into the house, though they didn't say exactly what he and Gigi were to each other. During that visit, Gigi called her friend on FaceTime. Keith was in the room with her, and according to the friend, he was holding a handgun. Investigators haven't said why he had the weapon, how long he stayed at the house, or whether that gun was ever recovered. But after Gigi and Steve were found dead 3 days later, the memory of a teenager sitting inside their home with a firearm became impossible to dismiss. The visit established that he knew the home, knew both children, and had been inside the property only 3 days earlier. The gun wasn't the only detail the friend remembered. Gigi had reportedly told her that James threatened to kill her if she got involved with another boy. Police later said a message on Gigi's tablet supported the friend's account. That alleged threat has never been confirmed as the motive for the killings, but it changed how detectives viewed the July 4 visit. A boy had been inside Gigi's home with a handgun, and Gigi had told a friend he threatened her life. 3 days after that visit, at around 3 o'clock on the afternoon of July 7th, Gigi called the same friend again. She said Keith was expected at the house around 4. It was the last conversation between the two friends described in the charging documents. At 3, Gigi was alive, telling her friend James was on his way. At approximately 7:30, her mother returned home and found both children dead. For detectives, that account created a narrow window and a test. If James was expected at 4, could police prove he'd actually traveled to Gwyn Oak that afternoon? Proving that took more than one recording. It took a chain of them, pulled from buses, homes, and streets across the area, then checked against phone records and the timeline the friend had given. One recording showed a person matching James's description boarding a bus toward Gwyn Oak. Another camera appeared to catch the same person moving through the neighborhood. A third placed him closer to Tallis Road. None of it showed what happened once he reached the house, but piece by piece, the friend's memory was turning into a real rote. Gigi had said Keith was coming. Now cameras appeared to show someone matching him making the trip. The trail didn't end at the house. Police said a person matching James's description was recorded leaving the area about an hour after arriving, but in different clothing than the earlier footage showed. A change of clothes doesn't prove a crime on its own, but placed beside the expected visit, the journey toward the neighborhood, and the later departure, it became one more piece detectives could weigh against the rest. Phone records added a separate layer. Police said location data placed James's device in the area during that window, not proof of what happened inside the home, but support for the route investigators believed the cameras were showing. By this point, the case was taking shape through pieces that each stood on their own. A friend who said Gigi expected James around 4, bus footage of someone matching him heading toward Gwyn Oak, neighborhood cameras following him closer to the house, a departure in different clothes, and a phone that placed him in the area. Each piece had limits. Together, police said they pointed in the same direction. What none of it explained was what happened inside the house. He was 9 years old. No known dispute involved him. Cameras could show movement, and phone records could place a device in an area, but neither could explain why a visit involving Gigi ended with her younger brother dead too.
And once again, I like to reiterate what the county executive and the councilman said. We can't say enough good things about our detectives and our investigators, and that also includes our crime lab and the people who work in our crime lab for the great work that they did in this case. From the very beginning, we were very diligent and we pursued the suspect in this case. I know it took much longer than I wanted it to. However, we had to make sure that we put together a very airtight case, considering the age of the suspect in this case and with recent changes in law in the state of Maryland. We had to make sure that we did our work the right way, the way that we always do. This case also highlights for me a couple issues. One is juvenile violence itself, just violence by juveniles on other juveniles. And it also highlights the point that as parents, we need to make sure that we know who our kids are associating with. We also need to make sure that when we go to work or we go out of the house, that we know who are coming and going in our homes, especially who are with our kids when we're not around. And the final issue is it's just dating violence, teen violence, between people who have relationships. So we need to be mindful of those things. And with that, I'll take questions, Kyrie.
Yeah, so the rifle, what you just said, forgive me if you mentioned it earlier, can you confirm that the 15-year-old was dating Jones or dated them at one point? Was it an ex-boyfriend or a current?
What I can say is that we knew that they knew each other, that there was some type of friendship or relationship there.
Any idea on what Jones's motive may have been?
At this point, we do not have any confirmed motive for the reason he did it.
And what led investigators to Jones? How were you all able to track him down?
I can't go into all those details right now. Much of that will be in the charging document. You'll eventually, I'm sure, have access to the charging document. But what I'll say is excellent police work. We utilize all technology, everything possible. I've said it before. One of the great things is that our administration and our county council have invested in the police department, invested in the infrastructure of Baltimore County. You can't go anywhere and not be on camera in Baltimore County. You can't go anywhere and not be seen.
Will he be charged as an adult? Can you tell us the charges?
Yes, he has been charged as an adult. I don't have the charges in front of me, but I know that that one of the charges at least will be murder. Charged with homicide.
You said it took you longer than you anticipated to make this arrest, but yet the arrest came. The murder notwithstanding, how troubling was this case for you and police?
I think if you go back and look at the video from that night, I didn't even realize it until I looked later. I mean, how troubling it was showed in my face and my demeanor that night. It's troubling when you consider how horrific this crime was carried out. It was terrible, and when you reflect on the fact that a child who had just turned 16 carried out this crime and did it in the manner and the way that he did, it's troubling.
And in terms of, I know it's an ongoing investigation, we can wait for the charging documents, but if you could share what you can, in terms of, you mentioned that parents should know, or something you said about their children and their dating. How long have they been dating, and what was the nature really of that relationship?
I don't have any information as it relates to that. I can't confirm whether they were truly dating or whether they actually just knew each other, but I knew they were known to each other and they had some type of relationship.
Last question here. The 9-year-old, he was there. He obviously wasn't dating the boy. Why the 9-year-old a victim?
Well, I mean, I can only speculate that he was a witness. He was an innocent bystander, and he was the result of everything that went on or transpired that day.
Was this teen suspect known to police prior to this? Any, past situations with law enforcement, that kind of thing?
With Baltimore County, I don't believe so. Of course, in the beginning of the investigation, he came to our radar and was one of several suspects in this case, and we were able to determine that he was the one that carried out the crime.
Are you able to talk a little bit about the circumstances that led up to the shooting? Had he been in the home, had he been spending time there before the shooting took place, or?
All I can say is we do know that he had been at the home before, maybe even several days prior, that we can confirm, at least on, to our knowledge, July 4th, that he had been at that location.
I was told by neighbors that there was a big party too on July 4th at that location. So, was he known to the parents too? Like the parents knew who he was and everything?
I can't confirm that, but it's possible that he was known to them.
Chief, a quick follow-up. You mentioned that that night you were very confident by saying, "We have a suspect. We have a suspect." Did you know that night that he was the one you were looking for? Let me rephrase that. What led you to him?
I will say that we had a belief that there was a definite suspect. We didn't have a definite identity, but we had an idea of who it might have been. And basically, we followed the evidence. We utilized all the technology that we had available to us. We utilized witness statements to us. We utilized everything that was made available to us to lead us to this suspect.
Chief, obviously, this sent a lot of shockwaves through the community. The funeral was yesterday. This really had a lot of people. You were emotional about it, impacted us as well. What do you say to the community tonight? Now that you have this big break in case this arrest that happened, what do you say to the community tonight that may still be, still is shaken up by all of this? Just on the human side of things.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that my heart goes out to the family and friends of the victims. Like I said that night, 2 lives were lost. These are lives that will never be realized, a brother and a sister. What I would like to say to the community is that Baltimore County is still a great place to live, work, and play, and to raise your children and for your kids to go to school. These things happen. They happen everywhere across our nation. They rarely happen in Baltimore County when you consider, we have a population, of about 850,000 people, and on any given day you have well in excess of 1 million people that travel throughout this county and come here and work. And all of last year we had 28 homicides. And as of this point, we're halfway through July, and we only have 12 homicides this year. So it's a great place to live. It's a place that's safe to live. The real issue is the number of guns that have proliferated our society, the availability of guns, the need to make sure that we lock up our guns in our homes. But we want people to know that Baltimore County is safe. We want the citizens and residents of Baltimore County to know that they can depend on their police department when something happens, that the incredible men and women that work in the Baltimore County Police Department will respond, and we will catch our suspect.
I just want to reconfirm, you said you will be charged as an adult, at least 2 counts of murder.
Do you know how he got access to a gun?
No, we do not.
Was he caught on camera? Leaving the house and that kind of thing, Chief?
I would say that he was on camera in several ways throughout the community.
That night?
Say again?
That night? Because I know you said he'd been in the area.
He had been in the area prior to the crime, and of course he was in the area after the crime. Any other questions? Thank you.
While detectives worked through the evidence, the family's calendar kept moving. Steve would have turned 10 on July 19th. 2 days later, on July 21st, he and Gigi were buried together. Their joint funeral was held at St. Casimir Church in Baltimore. Friends, classmates, and relatives wore black and yellow, colors chosen in honor of both children. Inside the church, the investigation was no longer the center of the story. The day belonged to Gigi and Steve. Gigi was remembered by the name her family had always used. Steve's mother shared his nickname too. They called him Pops. That single name carried more of his life than any police statement could. To the public, he'd become the 9-year-old boy found inside the house. To his family, he was Pops. The family buried both children without a public arrest. Then the next day, on July 22nd, Baltimore County Police announced that Keith Maurice James Jr. had been taken into custody. He was charged as an adult with 2 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of use of a firearm in a crime of violence. Police accused him of killing Gigi and Steve inside the Tallis Road home and leaving before their mother returned. By then, detectives had far more than one friend's account: the July 4th visit, the FaceTime call, the alleged threat, Gigi's statement that Keith was coming over, bus footage, neighborhood cameras, a possible clothing change, and phone location data. The arrest brought all of it together publicly for the first time. It still didn't explain why Steve was killed or show the public what happened during the missing period inside the home. The cameras could trace a path to Tallis Road and away from it, but the house itself remained the gap in the timeline. The day after his arrest, James appeared before a Baltimore County judge by video. He stayed silent while his attorney spoke for him. He was 16, but he'd been charged as an adult. He waived his right to a bail hearing, and the judge ordered him held without bail. A request to move him to a juvenile facility was denied, leaving him at the Baltimore County Detention Center as the case continued. No witnesses testified, and no plea was entered. The hearing dealt with where he'd be held, not whether the state's evidence could prove the charges. Outside court, defense attorney Brian Thompson reminded reporters that his investigation had only begun, and that James remained presumed innocent unless prosecutors proved the case beyond a reasonable doubt.
This is obviously an unspeakable tragedy. Our hearts and sympathies are with the victims and their families.
Police charging documents indicate James had been to the house days earlier, on July 4th. During a FaceTime call, a friend of Giovanna noticed that Keith was holding a handgun while in bed with the 15-year-old girl. Police have not said whether they've recovered a weapon.
And I would ask everyone to reserve judgment, afford my client his constitutional right to the presumption of innocence, and reserve judgment until the actual evidence is presented in a courtroom.
Police use cell phone records, witnesses, surveillance footage, including MTA bus video, to place him near the crime scene. Authorities say he used mass transit to get to Gwyn Oak from his city residence.
Most cases like this proceed to the circuit court via an indictment, which then cancels the preliminary hearing. Then there is what's called an initial appearance in the circuit court, and that should be his next appearance.
The allegations in the charging documents aren't a verdict. The surveillance evidence hasn't been tested in court. The phone data hasn't been challenged by the defense, and Gigi's friend hasn't testified under oath. Even before a trial, the ages at the center of this case are hard to look past. James was 16, Gigi was 15, Steve was 9. A teenager stands accused of traveling to another teenager's home with a gun and killing her and her younger brother. That raises a question beyond the courtroom. How seriously do adults take it when teenagers describe threats, control, or fear inside a young relationship? Gigi reportedly told a friend that someone had threatened to kill her. That friend remembered the warning only after Gigi was dead. That doesn't put responsibility on Gigi or on her friend for failing to predict what happened. Responsibility belongs to the person who chose violence. But it's a reason threats involving weapons should never be waved off as ordinary jealousy or teenage drama. Young people often talk to friends before they talk to adults, and when a warning is serious, another teenager shouldn't be left to carry it alone. Long before their names appeared in charging documents, Gigi and Pops were simply a sister and brother inside their family home. On July 7th, their mother came home expecting to find both of them alive. Instead, she walked into the start of an investigation built from fragments: a friend's memory, a FaceTime call, a bus ride, a trail of cameras, and a phone moving through Gwyn Oak. The court will decide whether those fragments prove the charges against Keith Maurice James Jr. But whatever happens in court, one question will stay outside it. Why was Steve killed too? If this case stayed with you, subscribe for the next one. And please keep any discussion in the comments respectful of Gigi, Steve, and their family. For 10K Crimes, this is the story of the Gwyn Oak sibling murders.